All right. Good afternoon. Bienvenidos. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for coming to the final session of the day. I promise you that if you fall asleep, I will only kick you a little bit. I'm Valerie Garcia. I'm really excited to be here with you today. A little bit about me for lots of folks in the room who've never heard me speak. I am, yes, are you waving at me? Oh, I was like, what did I do already? I am the second of 15 kids in my family, grew up on a farm. Yes, same parents, no twins, not Amish or Irish or Mormon or Catholic. And yes, we had a television. That should cover all the questions I normally get. I started in real estate 25 years ago. I know, I look amazing for my age. And today I'm going to talk to you about story selling. I started in real estate believing some of the lies that my broker told me early on about having to talk about myself all the time. And it was really uncomfortable for me. It wasn't something that came naturally. And over the last couple of decades, I've really learned a better way of talking about myself in my business. And that's what I want to share with you today. I want to give you some tips and some tactics and some practical ideas for talking to your customers about what you do and how important your job is. And that's what I'm going to leave you with today. So we're going to talk about story selling. And when I say the word stories, most of you are instantly transported back to some of the earliest stories that you learned. In fact, the way that we learned to approach the world really was through the power of stories. Through the power of stories, we learned how to use our imagination. We learned to use our vocabulary. We learned to name the things around us and to name our emotions. We learned about curiosity through the power of story. We also learned about sadness and friendship. And we learned how to have fun through the power of story. But as we grew older, the stories that we were fed, that we read, that we consumed, that were given to us as lessons became a little bit more serious. They became a little less fun and a little more purposeful. We were taught to use our imaginations, to believe things that were before maybe we thought impossible. We were taught to creatively think outside of the box. Stories helped us learn to find our voice. They also taught us to suspend belief. Best movie on the planet, I'll fight you. I did this session 2 weeks ago and I had like 3 people like, what movie is that? And I was like, get out. Gen Z, I'm telling you, these people, no culture. We were also taught to fear. Do you remember when we thought this was realistic and scary? Totally. Now, not so much, right? We were also taught to take risks. Stories gave us this idea that maybe, just maybe, some of these crazy ideas are possible. We were also taught who we are. Do you remember this line? Peter, don't you know who you are? And we were taught to hope, right? All of these super important lessons that shaped our lives through the power of story. And yet every single one of these stories that we were fed, the ones that we saw and the other ones that you are thinking of now that sort of shaped your life growing up, each and every one of them was also selling you something. They were trying to convince you of something or selling you on an idea. And everybody in this room is also selling something, whether you sell thumbtacks or canoes or tacos or white picket fences. We are all selling something. And the good news is that some of you in this room have also already come to the conclusion that you aren't just selling something. You aren't just trying to get people to buy what you're selling. You're also trying to get them to buy what the something that you sell does, right? Belonging, a home, generational wealth, stability, right? But none of that matters, whether you know that or not, none of that matters if you don't know why people buy. And that's what we're going to dig into today. Why is it that people buy? Now, the speakers and the gurus and the, fancy pantses of the world will tell you that it all comes down to a couple of things. It's all about data points. You've got to understand all the data points that control the way that your customers think. And if you can amass enough data points, you will understand why it is that people buy. They will also tell you that it's all about their generation, their age group. Do you remember a couple of years ago when everybody was like, oh, millennials, they don't want to buy houses, right? Big fat lie. They will tell you like, oh, it really depends on which, generation they'll in. They'll also tell you, oh, it's about demographics. It's about where they live and it's about where they grow up and whether or not, they were exposed to this idea of buying something. They will also tell you, no, you need to market based on what they love, like dogs or travel or whatever they, love. You got to talk about what they like. Or they say, it's all about their family structure or, how they grew up. Or the worst lie of all, they will say people buy when they are at the mercy of the market. And that's the only thing that really helps people decide whether or not to buy. And none of that is completely inaccurate. Those are just symptoms. Why people buy is what I want to tell you today. And if we can understand why people buy, we can start telling better stories, putting better messaging out into the world to help them make better decisions. And ultimately, that is the entire goal of our job. See, the reason is, or the thing is that people don't buy because of who they are. They don't necessarily just make decisions because of where they live or their demographic or their generation or any of those data points. People don't buy or make decisions because of who they are. They buy because of who they want to become. Every single one of us, we make decisions based on who we want to be, right? We sign up for that gym. We buy that diet app. I joined Bumble because of who we want to be, right? I know. It's a whole other class on mistakes. We make decisions, we buy because of what we see our future as, the thing that we want to become, the dream that we have that we want to realize, the person that we see ourselves as when we buy that thing. Ultimately, the experiences that we want to have when we make that buying decision. And so this is who we're talking to. When we are marketing, when we are getting on Facebook, when we are sending emails, when we are sitting at kitchen tables, we are not talking to who they are. We are talking to who they want to become. So how do you help your people see that? How do we get through to them? Because the actuality is that people don't buy what we're selling because we're selling that thing. They buy because they see themselves as more successful or happier or different or better because of that thing. So what your customers are really buying is a better version of themselves. Now, when I learned this, it took me almost 15 years in this industry of talking about me. Look at me, I'm number one. It's amazing. You should call me, like you should hire me, which got exhausting. After about 15 years of that, I started to learn this. And I realized that I didn't have to talk about me. I could talk about them, but not just them. I could talk about who they dreamt of becoming. And ultimately, I can do that through the power of story. And every single one of you has that same power. The power to help people see themselves as happier, more successful, better, settled, more accomplished because of what you do. Now, the thing about stories that is so powerful, Simon Sinek says there are only two ways to affect human behavior. You can manipulate it or you can inspire it. Now, manipulations work. They're not always a bad thing. If you go into the grocery store and you need to buy a box of cereal and you see it says buy 2 boxes, get 1 free, you're going to walk out of there with 3 boxes of cereal. That's a manipulation. It works. They do it because it works. The problem with manipulations are you have to continually come up with a new one, right? Like a new gimmick, a new idea, a new coupon, like a new free market analysis. And it's exhausting. The alternative is to inspire them. And the fastest and really the only way to do that is to get people to feel. If I can make you feel something, how many of you were in the room this morning when you heard that speaker talk about his life story? How many of you felt something? Those of you that are not raising your hands are big fat liars, right? How many of you were like, I'm not going to cry in public? If we can get somebody to feel something, if I can make you feel something, I can get you to change the way you think. And if I can get you to change the way you think, I can get you to change the way that you act. And over time, actions become behaviors. Parents of teenagers, you know this, really, the only way to get anybody to do anything is to ultimately make them feel something. And that's what stories do. Now, you don't have to be a great storyteller in order to do the things I'm going to show you today. You don't have to be an amazing writer. You don't have to be super confident in front of a camera. You just have to understand what makes your customers think and ultimately what makes them feel. And today I'm going to give you 10 examples of how to do this. I'm going to give you 10 marketing stories that you should be telling right now. And it doesn't matter where, social media, in person, Facebook, in emails, on blogs, whatever. These are going to apply anywhere that you talk about yourself and your business. So the first one is this. At some point, the pain of not doing something becomes greater than the pain of doing it. This directly relates to my taxes right now. At some point, we've all experienced this, the pain of not doing something, even though we're like, oh, I don't want to do that. That's terrible. You know, the pain of not doing something ultimately becomes greater than the pain of doing it. And so ultimately, we have to stop telling the story of the pain and start telling the story of the solution to the pain. Now, I'm going to pick on the gentleman in the room for a minute and use an example outside of our industry. So rumor has it, gentlemen, that you don't like going to the doctor. Apparently, this is a thing with dudes, right? You're like, yep, So if you look up guys and doctors' offices, you'll find millions of articles like this. 5 excuses men use to avoid going to the doctor. 72% say they would rather clean a toilet than go to the doctor. And my favorite meme there, this year, thousands of men will die from stubbornness. No, we won't. So apparently this is a thing. And so the medical industry for years and years has talked about the pain. Guys don't like going to the doctor. How do we get gentlemen to like going to the doctor? Why don't guys go to the doctor more? They try and, oh my gosh, if you don't get a colonoscopy, this is what's going to happen. They prey on the fear. But recently, there's a couple of doctors' offices that have clued into this. And instead of talking about the pain, they have started to talk about the solution. And they are what we're calling broifying the health experience, where you can go into a man cave instead of a waiting room, and you can sit on a leather couch and watch sports and feel very manly with coffee on tap, whatever it takes, guys, whatever it takes. Here's what I think is really important to take away from this in our industry. How many of you have seen a lot of talk about the pain in the news relating to housing in the last couple of months? Have we heard about inventory? Have we heard about rates? Have we heard about fear? Have we heard about the collapse of the housing market? Have we heard about bubbles, right? If I had $1 for every bubble. There are a lot of people talking about the pain. What if we talked about the solution? What if we talked about the solution to that pain? I talked to my lender the other day. I was like, hey, Jeff, how's it going? He's like, it's going. He's like, I wish people would stop talking about rates. And I was like, tell me more about that. He said, I just wish, instead of talking about rates, people would say like, did you know that if you made one extra mortgage payment every year, that you would take 7 years off your mortgage? And I was like, really? He's like, yeah. He's like, Val, this is what you do for a living. And I was like, I didn't know. Why didn't you tell me? He's like, yeah, like, why don't we talk more about that kind of stuff? Take your mortgage payment, divide it by 12, make that extra payment every month. Take 7 years off your mortgage. Isn't that more important than, yeah, rates are a little higher than what we're used to? Talk about the solution to the pain. What is that story? That is one of the most important stories that we can tell right now, because everybody's hearing about the pain. Number 2, we are more likely to notice things that stand out. This is just basic human psychology. Everybody wants to tell you, oh, if you buy a white car, you're going to start seeing all white cars on the road. You're going to feel like everything's the same. But the reality is that you are most likely to remember that one lime green Chevy that you drove past than all the white cars that look like yours. We are programmed to notice things that stand out. And these days, it feels like we live in a sea of same. The same messaging, the same articles, the same memes, the same ideas, just repurposed over and over again. And I want to challenge you to tell a story of how you are different. The number one lie in real estate that my broker taught me 25 years ago was that if you want to beat your competition, you just have to be better than them. But it's not true. If you want to beat your competition, you have to be different from them. Different is better than better. And so often we run this rat race of, I'm just going to do better, just going to do a little bit more. And we don't lean in to the fact that we have something weird about us that is memorable. Several years ago, RX Bar got a bunch of their marketers sitting in a room and they said, we've got to stand out. When you go into the grocery store, there are a million options for snack bars. There's a million granola bars and protein bars and power bars, and all of them start to look the same. And we want to stand out. And somebody said, what if we just published what we're willing to stand by? It was just the ingredients that we put in our product. And somebody else said, what if we just added that one extra ingredient, no BS? Was it risky? Yes. I mean, these are going in kids' lunches. But they said, we're going to take a stand. We're going to be different. We're going to be willing to do the thing that nobody else is willing to do. And we're going to draw a line and say, this is what we will not do. We will not put additional crap in our food. And so my question for you is, what makes you weird? Are you willing to be out there? Are you willing to take a risk? What did we hear this morning? If you're going to stand out, if you're going to stick out, right? So how are you different? And are you telling that story? Or are you just telling the story of how you're a little bit better than everybody else? I want to show you an example of someone who does this really well. My friend Gwen, she sells real estate outside of Detroit. And I know this is hard to read, so I'm going to read a bit of it for you. Several months ago, Gwen, almost a year ago now, she told a story on her Facebook about a closing that she went to. And she said, I had a really hard closing yesterday. My clients were forced to sell a home that they loved and wanted desperately to keep. She said, I always wonder if agents are conscious of their client's state of mind when they post those happy closing day photos, because it's not always appropriate. She said, several times throughout the document signing process, I was conscious of their chins quivering and the wiping of their eyes. And when the deed was all done and the copies were being made, the room went quiet. And then the very happy buyers began asking very normal, happy buyer questions like, where do we find pizza and what kind of plants are in the garden? And the sellers began to answer, but then they stopped and the tears rolled and it was awkward. And this is the line that stood out for me in this post. She said, finish their sentences when their voices locked with emotion. That was all I could do for them. An insignificant contribution, but it was enough. I see 1,000 happy closing day photos every day on my feed. This one stood out for me because once I was that seller that had to sell a house that I desperately wanted to keep. And I also cried during that closing. And I saw this and I thought, this is somebody that I want to refer to because she gets it. And she's willing to say the hard things. Like, not every closing is like, woohoo, closed another one. Look at me, crushing it. #blessed. Right? What makes you weird? What makes you different? And are you willing to put it out there even when it feels a little uncomfortable? Number 3, it is not about the features, it is about the future. Marketers have really clued into this lately, and I think that we have a lot to learn on this topic. A lot of us have been taught that marketing or talking about things is all about the features, the gadgets, the gizmos, the shiny things, the buttons, the bedrooms, the bathrooms, the hardwood floors, right? And yes, we have to talk about those things, but it doesn't always have to be about those things. Really great marketers know that people don't care as much about the features as they do about what does my future look like when I make this purchase? What does my future look like when I make this decision or make this move? And are we telling the story of a different future? I'm going to show you an example. A really simple ad that came out a few months ago from Timex. A simple ad that says, know the time without seeing you have 1,249 unanswered emails. Now, this really resonates with us because, I mean, most of us have about 12,490 unanswered emails, and it's growing every minute, right? Am I right? Yes. And so we look at this, and yes, it makes us laugh. It makes you feel something. It also makes you think, wow, what would my future look like if I went back to an analog watch? Wouldn't that be nice? Right? So often we do think that we need to just bombard people with the features when really a really simple line that just makes you feel something about what your future might be like can have a super impactful experience. So what does the future look like when they work with you? This is the story you should be telling. Not just, hey, here are the features and blah, 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 but what does the future look like when someone works with you? The reality is when I go to make a pretty big life-changing decision, like selling my home or buying a home or moving to another city, I have no idea what my future is going to look like. And that's scary. How often do we paint that picture or tell that story? One of my friends, Leslie, does this really, really well. She sells real estate just outside New Orleans. And during the pandemic, she had a little bit of spare time. And one of the things that she gets asked most frequently is, where should I live if I move to New Orleans? Because New Orleans is one of those cities that's made up of a whole lot of little neighborhoods, and they're all very different. And Leslie decided that during the pandemic, she was going to take the time, that she was going to go in and she was going to take photos of each of those neighborhoods and tell a story of what people's lives might be like if they were to move to those neighborhoods. And so if you go onto her website, Be New Orleans, and you look, you'll find each and every one of those little neighborhoods is featured there. And if you click on any one of those neighborhoods, you will find a little write-up. This one, Fontainebleau, says Fontainebleau is like the new girl in school. She didn't come around till the turn of the century. This neighborhood gives you an inviting feel as residents greet each other while out strolling under the giant oak trees. As you scroll down, you hear more about the neighborhood and the types of homes that are there and what there is to do there, and ultimately what your future would look like if you were to move there. This is something each and every one of you could do. Each and every one of you could take the time to tell the story of what your client's future might look like in any of the neighborhoods that you serve. Number 4, we are drawn to statements that feel personal, even if they could actually apply to anyone. This is called the Barnum effect, named after P.T. Barnum. And this is a psychological law that basically applies to those of us who see something and go, oh my gosh, how did you know? This also applies to things like fortune tellers and horoscopes and fortune cookies, where they're just vague enough where we think, oh my gosh, how did they know? Around New Year's, I went and got Chinese, as you do. And I'm always really excited about getting Chinese because I order and they give me enough, for like 4 people. And I just say, thank you, I'll take it home to my family, even though my family is just me. And then, what's nice about ordering that much is they give you extra fortune cookies and extra all the things because they think, this woman's got a family, not just eat it on the couch, sadly. But anyway, I love the fortune cookies, so I always save those for last. And what I do is I just open all of them until I get one that I like. Anyway, I got a fortune cookie at New Year's that said, something will happen to you next Saturday. Yep, that's what my fortune cookie is. Something will happen to you next Saturday. And I thought, first of all, they are really cheaping out on these fortunes lately. But I also thought this is a really good example of the Barnum effect because it would apply to anyone at any time. Right? We as humans are actually drawn to those kind of statements. We believe in things like horoscopes and fortune cookies because we think that could actually apply to me, right? Something great is going to happen to me next Saturday. If you go online and you search feeling stuck, tens of millions of articles are going to come up. What to do when you're feeling stuck in life? What to do when you're feeling stuck at work? How to find clarity when you're feeling stuck. The reason why this works is because at some point, every single one of us in our lives is going to feel stuck, right? This is a story we can all relate to. This is a perfect example of the Barnum effect. Every single client that we work with at some point in the transaction is going to feel similar feelings to every single other client you've ever worked with. What is that feeling? What truth applies to every single client? You know the answer to this. They're scared. At some point, they're all going to be confused. They're all going to have questions. They're all going to wake up at 2 a.m. and panic. They're all going to have a bit of buyer's or seller's remorse. At some point in the transaction, they are going to feel unsure, excited, freaking out. They are all going to experience those things. And so are we telling that story? This is completely normal. It's completely normal for you to wake up at 2 a.m. and freak out. Don't call me then. Call me in the morning. But are we telling that story? Or are we just saying, oh, we'll get through it? Or are we telling them, hey, you're not alone. This is what you can expect. This is where we're going. This is how I'm going to help you through it. What truth applies to every single client, and how are we telling that story? One of my friends, Laura, great example here. She posted this 2 years ago now. And she said, I was showing this beautiful home yesterday and I met the owners, and the owners said, we have lived here 48 years, but we are ready to move on. She talked about how those doors were in their very first home and they were going to leave them there. And this is what Laura said. She said, knowing what they must have went through, deciding to move on after 48 years. My parents moved this year for the first time in 47 years. No, mom and dad, we don't want any of your stuff. I know what they go through. It's hard. It's scary. I had to talk my mother out of taking 728,000 empty canning jars into her new 1-bedroom apartment. I know what that takes. And so Laura's sitting here saying, I know what they must have went through to decide to move on after 48 years. But this is the important part. She said, it reminds me, I never forget what I do for a living involves being in the warmth of your home. She didn't say, this is my job. I'm great at it. Look at me. Another notch on the belt, crushing it. #blessed. You laugh, but you see them every day. She said, what I do for a living involves being in the warmth of your home. What is something that every single one of our customers experience, and how can we tell that story? Number 5, it is lazy marketing to simply talk about what you sell. We've all seen this, not picking on anybody in particular, but we've all seen those agents. Hey, I'm an agent. I sell real estate. I have a house for sale. Anybody need a house? I have one for sale. It's for sale. There's an open house this weekend. Did I tell you that I have a house for sale? I'm just going to remind you, I'm an agent and I have a house for sale. Would you like to buy a house? We've seen those, right? We've all seen them. Probably none of you. It's lazy marketing, y'all. Like, to just be like, this is what I do. This is what I do. This is what I do. It's the bare minimum. Don't tell the story of the thing. Tell the story of what the thing helps them do or become or accomplish. Remember, you are not talking to who they are. You are talking to who they want to become. I'm going to give you an example here. Oh, let's not go quite that far yet. I'm going to give you an example. I also want to preface this because this is being recorded and also people are watching on Zoom. So I just want to make sure that I line this one up. I'm not suggesting you do what I'm about to show you. Okay. So you know how you used to check into like really fancy hotels, like really, really fancy ones? Not me. I've heard people do this. And they would like leave a mint on your pillow, those kind of hotels, right? Like the super fancy ones. Well, those hotels lately have been changing their marketing strategy. So instead of getting a mint on your pillow, you might walk into one of those hotels and get a CBD gummy on your pillow. And these CBD gummies I told you not to do this. They may give you a choice. Don't go putting these on pillows at your open houses. These CBD gummies give you a choice here between a wild night and a mild night. I don't make this stuff up. I'm just saying. So, they're making the assumption that if you go to one of those $1,000 a night hotels, that you are going there for one of two reasons. You are either going to get a lot of sleep or none. And they're probably right. Here's what I love about this example. While it makes you feel something and you laugh, and some of you are taking pictures and putting it on the internet with my name attached to it, thank you. This is telling the story of what you want to become or accomplish by buying the thing in a really great and creative way, right? What do you help people accomplish? It's lazy marketing to just be like, look at me, I have a house for sale. How can you tell the story of what you can help them accomplish? How does your marketing tell the story of what they are going to do or become or accomplish because of what you sell? We've got to move beyond, I have a house, it's for sale, into you want this and you dream of this and you can achieve this. The fastest growing demographic of first-time buyers in America are single women under the age of 40. Yes. What are we helping them do or become or accomplish? Setting themselves up for generational wealth. Are we telling that story? Not enough. Number 6, the very first piece of information we see often sets our expectation of value. You guys know this one better than anybody. Have you ever met with a seller who said, my neighbors just sold their house for this much, so mine must be worth, right? We've all been there. We are all intimately familiar with this scenario. This is another extremely human trait. The first piece of information we see sets our expectation of value. In fact, this is again a psychological fact. It's called the anchoring bias. Anchoring bias basically says whatever you see first in regards to price, you are going to line everything up in your head against that. I'm going to show you an example of this. Right now, you are looking at the pricing page for MailChimp, a tool that you've all heard of. And immediately your brain goes to the far left-hand side and you go, whoa, $2.99, that's a lot. So then your brain slides all the way over to the right and you go, free. That sounds good, but I bet it's not as good as one of the paid packages. And then your brain slides back over to $17 and you think, okay, but then there's an $11 option. So your brain goes hopping and skipping over just one more and you look at the 11 and you think, okay, but what's missing? And so ultimately you end up deciding on signing up for the $17 a month package. Now, I'm going to tell you, there's absolutely no difference between the $17 package and the $11 package. They're the same. Do you know what the difference is? The $17 package has a yellow line across the top. That's the difference. And because our brains work this way, anchoring bias immediately tells our brain that's the best one. And because it has a yellow bar across the top, our brain doesn't let us look to any of the other options. That one must be the best one. Now that I've told you that, you're going to start looking at pricing pages very differently. And you're going to be like, these scam artists, right? But this is how we are wired. And so we look at this and MailChimp makes $6 a month more on you than they would have if you had done the exact same package for $11 because they put a yellow bar across the top. Anchoring bias, it works. So my question for you is, what's the first thing you want your customer to know? What are they using as a gauge for all of the other options out there? The other agents, the opportunity to do it yourself, the open door offers, the sell it now for cash. If you don't sell it in a week, I'll buy it. All the things. What do you want your customer to know? So they immediately come back and think of that as the most valuable option. Are you telling that story? I can't tell you what the answer to this one is. For some of you, it's your network. For some of you, it's your personality. For some of you, it's the way you work, your values, your team, your experience, your tools. For some of you, it's all of those things. What's important is that you know what the answer is for you. Number 7, we are more likely to agree to a bigger request after already agreeing to a smaller one. Again, basic psychology. If I say yes to go to coffee with you, I am more likely to say yes to go to dinner with you. If I download something from your website, I am more likely to end up calling you or scheduling a meeting. This is simply the way we are wired. We are more likely to agree to a bigger request if we agree to a smaller one. A couple of years ago, I decided that I was going to try mountain climbing. I seem like the type, right? So I got on all these like mountain climbing groups on Facebook and I started learning about like the gear and the training. I skipped over the training part, went down the rabbit hole of the gear and everyone's like, yeah, you know, you got to have like the stuff that's like warm and you can layer it and it's waterproof, but it's not like super warm, like super sweaty. Anyway, I ended up on a website for this company, Paca. They make, well, clothes out of alpaca fiber, obviously. And in the climbing community, they are known as some of the best. They're also hella expensive. And I was like, I don't know, $250 for a sweatshirt? Like, I don't know. This is before I realized how much it actually costs to climb a mountain. I was like, $250, I don't know. But then I saw this on the website. Paca has this great system where you can go in and you can get the sweatshirt and then you can wear it for 5 days. And if you don't like it, you don't have to pay for it. You can return it. Not just like try it on, leave the tags on, like try it on in your bedroom and like see how it feels. Like go out and like hike in it. wear it, really use it. And if you decide it's not worth it, return it. I thought that was pretty great. I now own 2 of these. Question I have for you is, are there small first steps towards working with you? Can you identify what those are? Again, do you have buyer's guides and seller's guides? Can I watch videos of you? If I search you on the internet, do I find stuff that's actually helpful? Do I have the ability to download things or, talk to you without feeling like I'm committing to the entire thing? Can I even find your phone number on the internet anywhere? Or do I have to click the boxes that have a giraffe in them and then leave you a message? Are there small first steps towards working with you that are easy, that make me feel like, wow, working with this person is going to be comfortable and easy, and I'm going to enjoy the process? I would really challenge you to start looking at your business and your marketing, not towards what is the big thing that I do really well, but what are the small things that I'm not offering? Sometimes we miss the small things and get really caught up in the big things. Number 8, we are more likely to do something if everyone else is doing it. Did your mother ever say to you, if all your friends jumped off a bridge, would you? And you were like, I would. Whatever it takes to get asked to prom, right? We are more likely to do something if everyone else is doing it. This is basic human psychology. So are we telling the story of what everyone else is doing? This is an easy one, right? We see this all the time. Now that, again, that I'm pointing this out, you're going to start seeing it more. You belong here. America runs on Duncan. I don't know why that stuff is gross. I'm sorry, Ed. I'm sorry. We'll talk after. I know. America's favorite mascara, America's favorite cookie, right? We see these lines everywhere. Hey, everybody else is doing it. Everybody else loves it. Again, it's basic psychology. We see these things and we think, oh, okay, great. Everyone else is doing it. Everybody else likes it. It's probably all right. So what does everyone else experience when working with you? And are you telling that story? What happens to people when they work with you? What do other humans experience when they work with you? Yeah, we have testimonials on our websites. They're all those really canned, like, yep, Susan is wonderful. She's been in real estate for 27 years. I would trust her with my life. They're boring. Are we telling the stories of what happens when things go wrong and we have to fix it? Are we telling the stories of what happens when everything goes pear-shaped? I want to show you an example from Philly Home Collective. They're a Compass company in Philly. And on their website, they have a section called Stories. And when you click on that tab, you see that you have the option of home stories and maker stories and neighborhood stories. And if you click on home stories, you will find that on their website, they write the story of every single client that they work with. They started years ago gifting a professional photo shoot to every one of their clients that also took photos of the house, but took photos of the family in the house. And they use those in their marketing. Now, I know some of you are like, well, what if I don't want my photo taken? What if they don't want it on the internet? So you get creative. You take a photo of them walking away from you and it's the back of their heads. You take a picture of their dog. You take a picture of their feet around the welcome mat. Like, there are ways around this, right? Don't get stuck in the what ifs. They have pages and pages of these stories. John and Lizzie, from make your own pizza parties to proposal, this was their first step. A home is built to hold your memories. Right? Every one of these stories talks about not what your future would look like in that house, not only that, but also what did these people love about their home? But most importantly, what happened to these people when they worked with that team? They've now branched out and they're doing maker stories of small businesses in their community and neighborhood stories of each of the neighborhoods that are in and around their office. So many different ways to tell stories of what happens to people when they work with you. It doesn't always have to be a canned testimonial. It can be a story of what happened when they didn't get the first or the second or the 37th house that they wrote an offer on. Number 9, we are more motivated to avoid losses than we are to receive gains. Basic psychology. If I walked up to any one of you in the room today and I said, would you like this $20 bill that I'm holding right here? Or would you like a chance to compete against everyone else for $100? Most of you would say, I'll take that 20 bucks. Thank you very much. We are more motivated to avoid losing something than to gain something else. We're super worried about what we are going to give up or what we are going to lose. About 18 months ago, right in the middle of the whole pandemic thing, I was working from home. I was on Zoom like 7 hours a day. I wasn't thinking super clearly. I was starting to read the news about how, Amazon's a devil and taking over the world. And I started thinking about, what could I do to support my local businesses? And I really started feeling convicted about this. And I thought, I'm going to cancel my Amazon Prime subscription. I know it's a big step. I know. I felt the same way. Woo, right? And I tell you this story like I'm some kind of nice, good person, like, oh, I'm just going to support my local businesses. The truth is what I did is I went into settings, I went down to reports, and I printed a list of all of the things I have ever bought on Amazon, and it gave me a total. Yep, that's a thing. And I looked at that number and I thought, okay, Val, enough. Rein it in, because that is more than you put down on your first house. Yeah. So I went into Prime and I clicked the delete account button. And this is what came up. Valerie, thank you for being a member with us. Let's look at the journey that we've been on together. It said, look at those 59 packages that you've shipped for free. Look at those 19 movies you've watched for free. For free, right? And I looked at that and I thought, well, I'm still gonna have cat litter delivered. And I'm probably still gonna order my fridge filter through that because I can't find it anywhere else. So I'm still gonna have to pay some shipping. Anyway, you know what I did? I didn't cancel my Amazon Prime because we are more motivated to avoid loss than we are to chase gains. And so my question for you is, what will they lose if they don't work with you? And are you telling that story? What are they going to lose? What are they going to miss out on? What is that one wonderful, weird thing that you offer that no one else does, that you are willing to put on the packaging of the RX bar and say, this is where I draw the line. And you are going to miss out on this if you don't work with me. Is that risky? Yes. Does that make people feel like, yeah, absolutely. Number 10, last one I have for you today. When we receive unexpected value, we feel joy. One of the most universally known marketing tactics is to give somebody something they did not ask for, they did not expect, and they did not pay for. A couple of weeks ago, I got upgraded on my flight. It was really fancy. It was a 52-minute flight. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't have enough time today to serve you while you are on this flight, but we will be handing out water and your choice of snacks. You can get a cookie or, nope, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we have for you today is water and a cookie. I got upgraded to first class on that flight. I was really excited. I did. I got water and a cookie. But you know what I did? I was like, took a picture of my feet in that first class seat, put it on Instagram, #blessed. Look at me, ballin'. I got upgraded, right? So fancy. Do you know what happens when we get something we didn't pay for, we didn't ask for, and we didn't expect? We tell other people. We're just like, look at me, right? This is so amazing. When we receive unexpected value, we feel joy. What did I start out by telling you you have to do today to get people to do something? Make them feel something. Do you know what Delta did to me that day? They made me feel like I was really fancy for 52 minutes. I flew here in aisle 26 yesterday, by the way. Not so fancy, Delta. Are we telling the story of the unexpected? A couple months ago, I sat actually where you were sitting, and I watched somebody stand on a stage just like this, at a conference just like this. And I watched that speaker, who shall remain nameless, look out at us, the audience, and say, our clients are feeling a lot of pain right now. Like they're really feeling it. There's no inventory, rates are up, people are freaking out, all the things. They said all the things. And then he said this, we have two choices in this industry. We can sell painkillers and we can solve the pain, or we can sell vitamins and we can help keep them away from the pain. And everybody in the room was like, yeah, amen. And I was like, no. I remember sitting there that day and thinking, that is not our only option. We do not have to choose between painkillers and vitamins. Yes, are painkillers important? Can we talk about the solution? Yes, and we should. Can we also offer vitamins to help people feel less pain? Yes, but are those our only options? No. We can sell candy and people freaking love candy. Do you know out there in that lobby, there is a table full of swag that everybody left out? Do you know what went first? The things attached to the York peppermint patties. We don't have to choose between painkillers and vitamins, y'all. We can sell candy. We can tell people, yeah, you know what? Buying a house, selling a house, investing, renting, it's not always easy. But think of the future. Think of what you're achieving. Think of where this is going to get you. People freaking love candy, and we get to sell that. One of my favorite marketers, his name is Johnny Cupcakes. Has anybody heard of Johnny Cupcakes? Amazing, brilliant marketer. You walk into his shops and there are cupcakes in the window and they are beautiful. And you walk in and it smells like cupcakes, and there are vintage ovens all over the walls. And in there you can see cupcakes baking and you just think, oh, cupcakes. And you walk in and you said, I would like a cupcake. And they say, oh, we don't sell cupcakes. We sell t-shirts. Duh. They don't sell cupcakes. They sell t-shirts. Beautiful, magical, creative t-shirts in all kinds of creative packaging. They package them like pizzas or paint cans or push pops. Do you remember when we used to eat ice cream out of toilet paper rolls? Right? And I've just brought you full circle to those movies I showed you. This is candy. This is delight. This is unexpected joy, but they go a step further. When you buy a t-shirt from Johnny Cupcakes, you don't just get a t-shirt, you get something in there you didn't ask or expect or pay for. You get a Cracker Jack toy or a sticker or a little figurine or a Matchbox car, something that makes you feel unexpected delight. So my last question for you today is, what unexpected delight will feel like candy to your customer? What is something that feels like an upgrade? A Matchbox car, a sticker. What is that story? And are you telling that story? The reality is that marketing gets people's attention, and we all have to do it. We don't just sell real estate, we market real estate. That is our job. But storytelling gets people to trust you and remember you. You're going to leave here today and you're going to be like, yeah, that girl, she was funny. Her hair looked good. But she also told that story about her family. It's really big. And they had a TV. You're going to remember the stories, right? Storytelling is what makes people remember you. So what are you going to do next as you leave here today? A lot of you took a lot of photos of my slides that you're never going to look at again. But I'm hoping that you're inspired to think about your marketing a little bit differently. And some of you are probably asking in your minds some of the most common questions that I normally get. You're probably asking, so Val, where do I do this? Like, where's the right place? It doesn't matter. Pick a place, do it well. I always say you don't have to be everywhere, just be somewhere really well. Doesn't matter which of these is your poison of choice, just pick one and be yourself and tell your story. And it doesn't matter what the gurus say that the right ingredients are. Doesn't matter about the stats or the demographics or whether or not you have enough followers to be an influencer. It doesn't matter. Just be yourself and tell your story. And as you leave here today, if you don't remember anything that I said, I want you to remember the next 3 things. There are only 3 things that matter when you're telling a story. There's only 3 things that matter when you are marketing yourself and your business. The first is what? What is the story your customer needs to know? Most of your competition stops here. I'm a realtor. I have a house for sale. House for sale. Anybody want a house for sale? It's for sale. Most people stop here. The next step beyond what is so what? Why should I care? Why is this important to me? What's the difference that this is going to make? Why should I pay attention to you? So what? And the last one, the third thing is now what? What do I do with this information? What's the next step? If you walk out of here today and you remember only this, the next time you post on social media or you get on camera or you talk to somebody across the kitchen table or you send an email, go back before you hit send or post and ask yourself, did I tell them what, so what, and now what? If you do that, you will become a better storyteller. Best story on the planet. I'll fight you. As I leave you today, I want you to remember this. You are not talking to who they are. You are talking to who they want to become. And the question I have for you is, who can you help them become? What is their dream? What do they want to achieve? What does their future look like? What is in the cards for them? What is it that you are ultimately helping them achieve or become? If you can help them imagine themselves there, you are winning. So start story selling. There is a QR code on this slide. There is also a link. If you scan this, it will give you a handout of all of the stories that I mentioned today, plus 4 bonus ones we didn't have time for. I would encourage you to start incorporating these into your marketing strategies. Do we have any questions before I let you go, or would you like to get out of here 7 minutes early? All right. Well, thank you so much for spending time with me today. It was a pleasure. Have a good afternoon.